Thank you, Igor. That was a yeah, really lovely thing you said about the book, and yeah, like there's so when I first read the book, I read it twice before translating it, and I was like, this will be easy, not because I thought the prose was simple, but because it's so easy to read, because it's just so well written, because this, Ze's own voice is so poetic and incisive, and then also Gigi's voice is so entertaining and like, it's just like literally you're like with him having a beer, sitting in the patio. It takes you straight there. When I started translating it, I was like over and over again, like the kind of things like ukabra or whatever, just over and over again. And what was interesting is there were some times when like, as you said, it's not actually just you transcribing interviews with your father, but there were times when you would just put something he said in into the text, and you hadn't
Hmm.
really thought, oh, what does this mean? Because you're just saying, well, that's the way he talks, and then I'd be like, but hold on, how can this happen here? And you'd be like, I don't know, I'm not a truck driver. Do you know what I mean? So there's very technical stuff that neither I nor Zay really understood because none of us have ever lived that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
then there's the way he describes things. So like there's the bit where the two like thieves try and like steal the cargo, and Gigi is like chasing them down the highway. And the way he describes it sounds a bit like the truck like drives like over the top because he's just so into the story that it's like it doesn't really make sense in like a literal way. It's not really possible for him to like fly over, but the way he describes it is just so spirited. So I was like, but what's actually happening here? It's because Gigi is exaggerating. He's also remembering stuff from a long time ago, like the bit with the alien as well, with the UFO
Yeah.
as well. It's like, of course, it's muddled because he's remembering it. He could have been delirious with exhaustion. He probably did. There's so many factors in there. I just thought it was very hard to pick that apart. And so like, what's he physically describing here? Then I just looked when he got asked that question. Like I was just like, what's the first email I ever sent to Zay? And there's like so many crazy phrases here, like suspender o volume, which is like again, not the way you would say baixar o volume, but your mother has this weird way of saying it. It's all to do with, I've got this on anchihio nenhuma ideia. Like, just like, what's that? Molejao comprido pra ficar macio. Bicho de vontade me pegou. All these like weird phrases, and I'm just like, facao no toco. Isso não é de hoje. Just over and over again. Chamava o caboclo, not caboclo, caboclo na rasteira. Like, I don't know. So there were
Mm.
so many of these things that I was like, what is he talking about?
Rahul,
Jogou o caminhão por em cima dos cara, foi sarapatel. Like, I don't know. So it was really,
Rahul, but maybe you should mention the atoleiro, because this
oh
is the
yeah,
word that all the translators mentioned, that well,
yeah,
several
yeah,
translators mentioned, that was really hard to translate because it kind of captures a whole landscape. It's not only a hole, it's not a mud hole. What is it? So you went through different choices before choosing
yeah. I
one.
think
I
because
think you
I
chose
had the word.
quagmire, right?
No, no, we didn't. I chose
You
quagmire.
didn't. Okay.
But there
Oh,
was a
okay, good.
lot of pushback, and I think we did go for like mud hole or something.
I think mud hole. Yeah.
Yeah. Because a quagmire is, I mean, atoleiro is also like a metaphor in Portuguese, isn't it? Like, and we use quagmire, but a quagmire sounded a bit too quaint, and so we wanted just to go for a visceral word like mud hole, like a big hole, so at least you could see it. Because I don't think people even think what is a quagmire. They only really use it as a metaphor. So it had to be something you could picture in the end. But yeah, that was the hardest. That was the one word that caused the most. Not actually between me and Zay, but between me and the editors. Like we had to keep thinking about that. But yes, there were just so many of these things. Either it was like stuff that Gigi had said. It was also like obviously because like so for example, we translated it into British English mostly. Um, and yet, like we use the word truck. because in England, in Britain, we use the word lorry, but I felt that like a lorry is something that you can imagine on a kind of smaller scale. Whereas a truck is like, obviously, when we think of trucks in English, we think of North American truck drivers. So even that wasn't a simple word to choose because it stands out in a British translation to have the word truck, and yet I think it seems more appropriate to the context. So yeah, it wasn't easy at all, but it was really fun.